In 2011, the Library of Congress selected Forrest Gump for the preservation in the United States National Film Registry as being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. Forrest Gump is an American romance comedy slash drama. It came out in 1994 with a budget of about $55 million, and as of 2009, has grossed over $677 million. And if you haven't seen the movie, it's got Tom Hanks in it. Most of you have seen it, but what makes it interesting is how they write the story with cultural events that happened in that time, and they kind of plug him into these different times and different areas, meeting famous people and different things like that, which made it a really fun story to watch and remember. And tell me if you can remember, if you remember when he was in his bed and breakfast with his mom, this young singer came in and was playing his guitar and singing, and he said he started dancing, and because of his crippled metal braces and his crippled legs, his knees bent in while he was dancing. Well, this singer saw that and said, that's pretty cool. Later on, went on to do it on stage, and it was a signature move, and that singer's name was Elvis Presley. And he came through in 1956, which lines up with how Elvis started out, around the time he was starting out. Now, when he gets older, he ends up playing football for the legendary Alabama head coach, Paul Bryant, or known as Bear or whatever. And Alabama is a significant team, even as of today. So, you kind of recognize, and they were good back then in that time frame. And also, he was there when Governor Wallace blocked the entrance to the school during the desegregation, which really happened. That was a real event that was on TV, and blacks were being discriminated against, and they kind of plugged Forrest Gump right in the middle of that incident. Later, he went on to go into the Army and went to what's known as a very famous war, the Vietnam War. And in 1961, he met President Kennedy at the White House, which is interesting. President Kennedy's a real president. And at that time frame, they plug in these times and dates. He also it shows him learning of both attacks on the Kennedy brothers, and they were indeed both assassinated. It shows him in 1969 watching the landing of the Apollo 11 or something. He saved his fellow soldiers and was awarded the Medal of Honor. And the current president during that time was Lyndon Johnson, and so they plug him and Lyndon Johnson together, and Lyndon Johnson has given him the Medal of Honor. And he also got swept up into the March on Washington, which is a real event that happened. There was a March on Washington protesting the war in Vietnam, and some of the people that were there were kind of starting out, known as the Black Panthers. And he kind of got in the mix of them a little bit. And he sees Jenny there, which is his longtime girlfriend when he grew up as a kid. She had grown up and moved away, ran away. Well, they show her shooting up drugs, which was kind of popular back in the hippie days. A lot of drugs were very popular. And then in 1972, he meets President Nixon. And ironically, he's the one, according to the movie, that alerted security that there's a break-in in the Watergate Hotel where Nixon's men were trying to find dirt on McGovern. Then he played ping pong, but he played in a unique time, and they lined it up perfect where he went to China to play ping pong. Now, nobody was allowed in China. There was this block or something, we weren't allowed to deal with them, and the real event did happen. It was known as the Goodwill Tour, and it led to the end of the trade embargo. He was on television with John Lennon, a famous singer, real-life singer, who actually went on that show. Well, they kind of plugged him in the middle of that show. So that was interesting. And then in 1974, while he was shrimping on his shrimp boat, he met Lieutenant Dan and Bubba, and Bubba got killed, and he saved him and all this. And promised he'd start a shrimping business. Well, he started it, but he survived a famous and real Category 4 hurricane known as Carmen. And that's a real event that happened in that time. He later went running across the country and stepped in some shit while a t-shirt guy was running behind him. He was trying to coin a phrase, trying to talk to him, and he stepped in shit, and he goes, "Man, Forrest, or whatever, you just stepped in some shit." And he goes, "Well, it happens." So that coined the phrase that everybody knows today, shit happens. He also wiped his face with a yellow shirt, which this was kind of ridiculous, but it made a perfect smiley face. 2 little eyes, a nose, a mouth, perfect round circle, kind of like the thing you see at Walmart, you know, that little round smiley face or whatever, but that's where that logo came from, supposedly. And then after making money on his shrimping business, he invested in a small company known as Apple Computers. Now, they're huge now, and of course they failed a while back. They dropped in stock, but back then they were just booming. And so a lot of people made a lot of money back then, including him, according to the story. After that, he went and seen Jenny at her apartment and met little Forrest, and while he was there, little Forrest was watching a real TV show known as Sesame Street. He later married Jenny, who was his former girlfriend, because of, the son, and she went through some problems and this and that, but they finally got back together. Well, Lieutenant Dan comes walking up with a new invention called titanium prosthetic legs, very real, and around that time were being invented. Later, Jenny dies of a new and very real virus known as the HIV virus. So, again, I love the movie. I can see why in 2011 the Library of Congress selected Forrest Gump for the preservation in the United States National Film Registry as being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. What's amazing is how the movie uses real people, real places. It talks about actual wars and protests and real events that happened. Yet there's one thing that's kind of unique. The star of the show, Forrest Gump, was made up. Completely fiction. So I wonder how many other stories were written like this one, using real people, real places, real events that turned a simple man into a legend, or made a legend out of a man that never existed. Think about it. When you write stories, you've got to use real places, real events, real times of the events. You can create a very fascinating story that everybody will follow and remember because they can relate. So the next time somebody on Facebook wants to debate me and says the Bible's real because of the archaeological whatever discoveries, and because Caesar asshole lived at this time, and because such and such was a real battle, and they've got things that can show it, and because we found a city that was burned up, so that must be Sodom and Gomorrah. Please understand that there are many variables. There may have been a battle, but there may not have been a guy that killed 1,000 men with the jawbone of a donkey. There may have been a fire that burned a city, but it could have been a volcano. It could have been just some fire that broke out randomly. It could have been a friggin' asteroid that broke into our atmosphere and kind of shattered into little pieces and caused just this crazy fire. It could be all kinds of things. It doesn't necessarily mean God did it. Please, the next time you say the Bible's real because it has real people, real places, real events, all on a timeline, with different stories marrying all together to make it real, then just remember you are now saying that Forrest Gump is a real American hero.